Jonathan, it's been a week. We've been off the air. I have in my hand the top 181 stories of the week, pared down, hopefully.
Okay, let's get to it.
Pared down, hopefully. All right, the big news in immigration is the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They announced Friday that the Biden administration is going to end the Trump-era pandemic restrictions that effectively blocked migrants from entering the United States all throughout the COVID pandemic. Now, former President Trump, former Pumpkin, invoked a public health emergency known as Title 42 at the onset of the coronavirus pandemic. That prevented anybody from entering the United States of America, including asylum seekers at the border. And basically anybody who was coming to the border in Mexico, you were just turned around. Couldn't enter the United States to apply for asylum. In the past, the way it would work is you would get interviewed by an asylum officer. If you had a credible fear, you were allowed in to see an immigration judge to make your claim for asylum. And if you did not have a credible fear of persecution, they would deport you, jail you and deport you, send you back, whatever the case may be. Now, the CDC said in its announcement that they're going to terminate Title 42 on May 23rd, 2022. So it's still in effect until May 23rd. That's going to enable the Department of Homeland Security time to implement appropriate COVID-19 migration protocols, such as scaling up a program to provide COVID-19 vaccinations to migrants and prepare for the resumption of regular migration under Title 8. Now, the lifting of the pandemic restrictions is expected to have immediate ramifications and would mean a return to traditional immigration protocols that have been in place for decades, just like what I discussed. The big issue that the Democrats are going to have, just wait till you start seeing the news. Okay? The news is all going to be from the Republicans and from Fox and Rupert Murdoch and Tucker Carlson and all those other guys or women over there. Oh, Biden's opening up the border. Biden's opening up the border. Now, the department, and that's going to cause perhaps a lot of independent voters to swing Republican, Jonathan.
Right.
Now, the Department of Homeland Security is preparing a worst-case scenario surge of up to 18,000 migrants applying for asylum each day at the border. And while the lifting of Title 42, migrants still can be detained, they can still be deported. Doesn't mean you're being allowed in the United States of America, but many may be released into the United States while they are waiting on their pending asylum cases.
I feel like some of these Republican states are probably going to start saying that this would lead to a crisis at the U.S.-Mexican border.
Correct.
As well.
What they're going to say is that Biden opened up the border and they're allowing everybody to run. You know, the way they describe it is that people are literally, he opened up the door and people are literally running across the border. We don't know who the heck's coming in. We know nothing about the people coming in. That's not the case. What's happening is you go for an interview, you pass a credible fear that you in fact have a true claim for asylum, and then you go before an immigration judge, hopefully shortly thereafter, to have your asylum case heard. Many people would stay in detention while they're waiting on their asylum case. So it's not necessarily that you're just allowed across the border.
I also saw it just came in about an hour ago. It says Missouri, Arizona, and Louisiana, 3 Republican-governed states, announced that they're suing the administration of President Joe Biden.
Yep, that would make sense.
Yeah.
That would make sense. And what's going to happen is that they'll probably make a lawsuit in a Republican county with a Republican federal judge that was either put in place by Bush or Trump, who would then put a hold on the program while they are waiting on, just like everything else with DACA and everything else. And eventually it'll make it up to the Supreme Court. So it's very possible that on May 23rd, Title 42 is still in existence. We don't know. We don't know. Now, again, Biden has a right to make any changes he wants.
Right.
The question becomes, did he follow the right rules?
Right.
Or did he just decide he's going to announce it and do nothing? We'll see.
I hope he doesn't.
We will see. That. Now there's hundreds of Ukrainian migrants They're also camping at the border in Tijuana, Mexico. They're seeking asylum. Now about 100 are being processed each day and allowed into the United States. The numbers are far fewer than in Europe, which has so far absorbed 3.8 million Ukrainians. Now, President Biden has promised to accept up to 100,000 Ukrainian refugees, and the promise to accept the migrants does not extend to Russians, to Mexicans, to South and Central American migrants, to West Indians seeking asylum at the border, Africans seeking asylum at the border. It is just 100,000 refugees for Ukraine. Now, there's two policy experts, J.C. Hendrickson of the International Rescue Committee and Julia Gallant of the Migration Policy Institute, and they told Newsweek that trying to resettle 100,000 Ukrainians into the United States could take up to 2 years. So it's not going to happen overnight. The analysts say the United States faces a major visa backlog and that refugee resettlement programs have depleted staff dealing with lengthy resettlement processing procedures. All of these backlogs, and I've done TikTok videos on this, and people are arguing with me on TikTok.
Really?
Yeah, all these backlogs, including what they're talking about here, that they don't even have the personnel and the infrastructure to absorb 100,000 people. It's three. Everyone goes, why is it so long these days? And the reason why it's so long is three things. One, Trump decimated immigration. Okay, he cut State Department staff back by 70%. He did not fund any State Department, USCIS, Department of Homeland Security agencies. He fired lots and lots of people. He put in regulations that made it cumbersome to process a case. So they put in a lot of regulations that extended the processing of cases to make them go longer. And he did it all on purpose to slow down the immigration process. Now, while that was happening, COVID happened. Now, COVID happens, guess what? Everybody's working from home. Is the government prepared to work from home? Absolutely not. That slowed everything down too.
Right.
And then you want to know what happened when we were told to come back to work? We had the Great Resignation. More people quit their jobs than at any time in the history of the United States.
Wow.
People said, you know what? I got used to working from home, or now that I'm home and I had a lot more thought, I want to do something else with my life. There was all sorts of combinations of why people quit their jobs.
Right.
And you want to know what? They also quit government jobs. All right, it wasn't just private sector jobs. Public sector jobs as well. People work consular officers at the U.S. Embassy, USCIS officers, immigration judges, everybody.
Wow.
Some people were scared to go back because they didn't want to get COVID. So there's all sorts of reasons. There was a huge Great Resignation that left a lot of applications that needed to be filed that couldn't. And now you have President Biden saying he wants 100,000 Ukrainians. They don't have the resources to do it. They don't even have the resources to process the existing cases. Like, I'll give you an example. Under former President Trump, the refugee ceiling dropped each year. He did it on purpose. Before Trump took office, 85,000 refugees were allowed into the United States annually. In Trump's last year, he cut refugees to 18,000 people.
Jeez.
Now, in a bipartisan letter to President Biden, led by Congressman David Cicilline, and featuring 61 other signatures, both Republicans and Democrats, bipartisan, they emphasized that Ukrainian refugees are being housed in temporary shelters as Europe struggles to accommodate more than 4 million people who fled the war-torn homeland. Congressman Cicilline says America's refugee system has stood as the crown jewel of humanitarian work, but he said that less than 15,000 refugees ultimately admitted into the United States during the last year of the Trump administration, a time when the pandemic exacerbated humanitarian crisis around the world, was embarrassingly small. If you say, on the Statute of Liberty, give us your poor, your weak, your huddled masses, people escaping war, people escaping famine, people escaping climate changes, people escaping dangerous countries, people escaping for their life because of rape and and countries that are unable to provide even basic security, all trying to escape. And America is supposed to be this beacon of, we will accept you, we will take you. 18,000 people. 18,000 people.
Wow.
So that's why.
From
that's why.
85,000.
And so how if you cut it down to 18,000 people, you know what happens when you cut it down to 18,000 people? Hey Joe, you have no work to do. You're fired because people didn't have any work. So they cut the staff. Now you got to go back and hire all these people.
Right.
You got to train people. You got to. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
That's why there's these huge backlogs.
Yeah.
Now, my opinion, the only way to do this is they have something called parole in place. So if you are parole, period. So if you are a Ukrainian or you have family that's in Ukraine, they have existing programs. It's called parole. And they are giving parole to people on a case-by-case basis to enter the United States. It doesn't give a Ukrainian a green card. It's not for life. It does give you work permission. It does allow you to live here on a temporary basis. That application is made at a U.S. embassy in a third country. And then eventually they'll probably extend the temporary protected status to those who are able to make it, because there's no way in the world that they're going to be able to get 100,000 Ukrainians into the United States in any reasonable amount of time. And meanwhile, President Biden, he called the carnage. Did you see these pictures, Jonathan?
Which ones?
In Bucha, Ukraine. The Russians have retreated from encircling Kiev. They realize that they're not able to decapitate the government, the Ukrainian government. Zelensky stayed in Kiev. They defended their capital. The Russians did not go into the capital. They weren't able to make it in there.
Wow.
The Ukrainians pushed them back. And now the idea, at least what you're reading, you don't know what's in Putin's mind.
Right.
But the idea, what you're reading, is that Putin thought that he was going to just take over Ukraine, put in a puppet government, is unable to do this. Now the thinking is that Putin wants to split Ukraine in half, kind of like North Korea, South Korea. Okay? So there'll be a Russian part of Ukraine that is controlled by a puppet government of Russia, and there will be a more westernized west portion of the Ukraine that would be part of the European Union. And they're going to basically cut the country in half. The Russian side on the east side is the side with all the natural resources. All the second most undeveloped natural gas resources in all of Europe. So people think maybe Putin's just looking to pump more gas out of the earth. We don't know what's in his mind.
Right.
Okay, but what's happening is that they're retreating. The Russians are retreating from surrounding Kiev. They were in the suburbs of Kiev. Just think of like a normal suburb, like in any country you would live in. You know, there's the city and then this suburbia. And as they have retreated, there have been pictures that have come out.
That looks horrible.
Okay, corpses on the ground, executed people. This is a suburb of Kiev.
Sheesh.
In a major European country, with corpses of executed people. They line a street by the name of Yabluska Street in Bucha. Bucha is a suburb of Kiev. They found a mass gravesite of 150 people buried, shot, and killed. They have kidnapped over 15 mayors. Many of the mayors of these local towns have been killed, as long as their family as well.
Wow.
In a video addressed Sunday after the reports out of Bucha, these awful, awful pictures, President Biden said it's a war crime.
Yeah.
President Zelensky said not only is it a war crime, but it is genocide. Now, the alleged atrocities have drawn international outrage, not just from the United States, not just from within Ukraine, because nobody knew what was going on there until Russians retreated. Western leaders, including U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, are saying more sanctions. It's very possible how this affects everybody, because we are in a global society. It's very possible that because of this, Europe is going to now no longer purchase gas and natural gas and oil from Russia. If they do that, the president of Deutsche Bank, which is Germany's largest bank, said Europe is going to go into a massive recession. So although Europe wants to punish Russia,
it's going to hurt
it's
them.
also going to punish them as well. Europe goes in a massive recession. Guess who else goes into a massive recession? We here in the United States. China, people in Jamaica, people in Brazil, people in Africa.
Wow.
It reverberates worldwide and affects everybody. Now, the Russian military, they of course say it's fake. You want to know why they say it's fake? What is the playbook of authoritarianism, Jonathan? Everything is fake. Constantly
deny.
Fake. Everything's fake.
Fake.
Oh, you know what? I just lost the presidential election by 9 million votes. That's a fake election. Fake election. It was rigged. Fake.
Yeah.
Trump did the same exact thing. He's still doing it to this day.
Yeah.
When you know that a president's coming out and saying that's fake, it's rigged, when everybody else says it's not, guess you know who's always doing it? It's always the authoritarian figure doing it.
That's true.
That is their playbook.
Yeah.
So you knew Russia was going to say, "Oh, it's all fake pictures," when everybody else in the world is saying this ain't fake.
There are bodies on the ground in some of these pictures, just laying on the ground. It's horrible.
The evidence of apparent atrocities in Bucha came as Human Rights Watch announced that it has documented allegations of war crimes in the occupied areas. Problem is, none of this is going to make Putin leave power. And so you can call war crimes all you want, but until he's not in power anymore, it's not going to make a difference in his life.
Yeah.
Maybe it goes down in history as a horrible human being. But in his present day life, it's not going to make one bit of difference. And at some point, we got three choices. Continue this war forever. Make peace with a man who's a war criminal. And give him a piece of Ukraine that he doesn't deserve. Or kill him.
Yeah.
Those are our three choices. I think of all three, it's going to end up, you got to shake a hand of a war criminal.
Dang.
And by the way, Biden administration, they announced that they're going to overhaul the U.S. asylum system. We were talking about it a little before with Title 42. But what they're going to do now is when you go for your interview, for your credible fear, whether you come into an airport or at the border between Mexico and the United States, they're going to empower the immigration officers there to not only give a credible fear interview to determine whether or not you should even move to the next step of filing an asylum application, but rather than stupidly saying, okay, now you're going to go tell your story to a judge and we're going to wait, you're going to tell the story to me right now at this very moment. We're going to take your asylum application right now at this very moment and we're going to make a decision right here on the spot. So it'll do two things. One, it's going to make the processing go faster. Two, it's going to make a lot more denials because no one's going to have access to a lawyer. But at least they're going to process people. But according to the new rules, you still will get the chance to see the immigration judge on a limited basis if your asylum case is denied. My concern with when I read this is that you're a migrant at the border. You're somebody escaping, a country for your life, even at the airport. You have no access to a lawyer, and you have to now be prepared after traveling, living on the ground, traveling up from Central America, escaping for your life, to go tell a story, maybe in a different language than you're used to, and be able to be credible and real without the help of ever speaking to a lawyer about even knowing what you have to say, what you have to prove. Yes, it will streamline everything, but I think at the expense of a lot of people's rights.
Yeah.
And Biden, what do you think of this, Jonathan? Because this affects you.
Okay.
Biden wants to give 20% tax all households that make more than $100 million, 20%. If you have if you have assets over $100 million, you should pay a minimum tax of 20% on all of your assets. That would be billions and billions and billions of dollars from basically billionaires who pay, as a percentage of their income, one of the lowest tax rates, not only in the United States, but around the world, as a percentage of their income, because they have all these tax loopholes. I don't mind it. I think they should.
I think they should too.
I have no problem redistributing wealth.
Yeah.
I think that Jeff Bezos, who has $100 billion,
Right.
if he has $80 billion left after this tax,
He's still okay.
I still think he'll be okay.
He's still okay.
All right? I mean, let's say you have $100 billion.
Yeah.
So you get $20 billion and you're still left with $80 billion?
You're okay. Okay?
Is that okay? Do you think they'll be okay?
Yes.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And people are like, I don't know if this is fair or not. What do you mean you don't know if it's fair? How is it fair that Jeff Bezos wakes up one morning and, I mean, I'm not saying he didn't work hard for his money. I'm not saying he's not a brilliant man. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be a billionaire. Right. But to turn around and say, I woke up one morning because the stock market went up, I'm now worth $11 billion more.
It's like, come on.
Yeah. You know, at some point, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
And part of the new budget that Biden is, so I hope that passes.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and part of the budget that Biden wants to pass is $30 billion for law enforcement, $773 billion for U.S. military. You know, the United States spends close to $1 trillion on our military. And for the first time in years and years and years, fund the USCIS.
Oh.
$765 million to hire new officers and new people to process paperwork to eliminate USCIS backlogs. Because right now, USCIS is based on user fees. People pay a filing fee, and it's that filing fee that pays all the salaries of people at USCIS. The United States government doesn't give one penny to USCIS. Can you imagine? And people have to wait 6, 7, 8 months for a work permit? 2.5 years for their spouse?
That's horrible.
You spend $773 billion on the military. You can pull $765 million out to make everyone's lives
Absolutely.
better. Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
I like her. Smart lady.
Yes.
Yeah. She's expected to be confirmed this week. Senate Republicans and Democrat leaders both agree she's well qualified. It's going to be all Democrats, including Manchin and Seema in Arizona. They've all agreed to vote for her. Sinema, I keep calling it Seema. Sinema in Arizona. And as a matter of fact, there may be 1 or 2 Republicans who vote for her too, including Susan Collins up in Maine. So it'll pass 52, 53, 47, somewhere in there. You know, the last Supreme Court nominee to almost have a unanimous vote? You got to go back to 1993, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 96-3.
Wow.
Since then,
I was wondering if it was her.
Since then, it started to slowly go down.
Sheesh.
Nobody got into the 90s. And it's been slowly down to where it's like 51, 49. It's become extraordinarily political now.
Yeah.
But she's expected to become the first black female Supreme Court justice.
Wow. It's amazing.
Yeah. And what else do we have here? Coronavirus. If you're over 50, go get the 4th booster.
Sheesh.
That's what the CDC says.
The 4th booster.
I don't know. I took 3 already.
Really?
Yeah. So I've had 3. And I've had COVID. I may take it. I'm not saying I'm not going to do it. Because I will do it. I'm over 50, sadly. Sad as I don't like to think I am, but I am.
Right.
But I'm going to do it. I'm just not ready to do it at this moment.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
It's a lot of medicine
And just like
in
2
your
years.
body. You ready for Fuzzy Monday,
Yes,
Jonathan? Let's do it.
Let's get in it.
Let's do it. All right, Jonathan. An Instagram famous cat has escaped war-torn Ukraine and found safety and refuge in France and is now helping other animals in need, raising over $10,000 for animal relief.
Wow.
Yeah, his name is Stepan. Stepan has more than 1.2 million followers on Instagram, became popular thanks to his amusing photos and signature grumpy poses. His owner, Anna, is from Kharkiv, which was bombed, and the eastern part of Ukraine. It's unlivable city now. It was the second largest city in all of Ukraine. And she didn't post anything for 2 weeks, so people got scared.
Oh, that was her building, too.
Yeah, people got scared that something happened to her or something happened to Grumpy Cat Stepan. But she finally resurfaced 2 weeks later, and she made a long post that we got on the train from Kharkiv to Lvov. Lvov is on the western part of Ukraine. It was a 20-hour train ride. Then we followed to the border with Poland. At the border, we stood in line in a pedestrian crossing. There were about 5,000 people there. After 9 hours, we crossed the border, and that post received more than 500,000 likes. And you saw Grumpy Stepan in his little cat carry bag.
Oh.
And now that he and Anna are safe, Stepan began collecting money over PayPal last week to donate to 5 animal charities in Ukraine because a lot of people sadly left their animals behind.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, they left their animals behind. They left, either they got killed, they ran. So there's a lot of domesticated animals in the Ukraine with no homes now.
Right. Oh, that's so bad.
Yeah. So they raised over $10,000 to help these charities find new homes for many of these. These are not wild, these are domesticated animals that just got left. Happy Paw, You Animals, Mykolov Zoo, 12 Months, and Plushka. They will all help in a variety of ways, providing aid to all these domesticated animals that have been affected by the war. Now, Stepan, this grumpy cat here, was rescued when he was 1 month old and has lived in Ukraine his whole life. He went viral on TikTok in 2019, appearing with his famous glass of red wine with Stevie Wonder's I Just Called to Say I Love You playing in the background. And he even caught the eye of Britney Spears, who reposted Stepan on Britney's Instagram.
Wow.
And staying in Ukraine, Jonathan, the internet is swooning over an adorable dog tasked by the Ukrainian military to sniff out and locate Russian mines.
Wow.
Yes, a cute snap of patron, I guess, which translates to bullet in English.
Oh.
Yeah, bullet. That sounds like a
Patron.
that sounds like a good name for a dog sniffer,
yeah,
right?
especially a Jack
Look how
Russell.
cute he is.
Oh,
Yeah,
he is so cute.
Yeah, he was initially posted to Reddit forum Dogs with Jobs, and it's been shared elsewhere. The picture shows Bullet. There he is, who appears to be a Jack Russell Terrier. That was a good quote by you, Jack Russell Terrier. Yeah, donning a tiny Ukrainian military vest, and it was later reposted on Imgur. I don't know what Imgur is. I have no idea. Where it's revealed that Patron, or Bullet, is 2 years old, likes cheese, and likes finding Russian landmines.
Look at him finding it.
Yeah, he finds the Russian landmines.
Oh.
Yeah, so someone wrote, we don't deserve dogs and their faithful love.
Right.
Another wrote, of course they use a Jack Russell. If the bomb goes off, it'll run out the blast. Jack Russells are fast, I assume.
They are very fast.
Very fast, yeah.
Yeah.
And someone else wrote he deserves the best cheese for his work.
Right. Get him the best cheese.
And Jonathan, the oldest turtle, is still alive. Turning
This is
100.
crazy.
That's crazy.
190?
190 years old turtle.
It's almost 200 years old.
Can you imagine?
Like
It's
what?
lived. This turtle was born before the Civil War.
There's pictures of it like in the 1800s.
This turtle was born when Andrew Jackson was still alive.
That's crazy. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's in the 1800s.
In the 1800s. All these great-grandchildren maybe are alive who are...
Like what?
Yeah, it's recognized by the Guinness World Record as the world's oldest tortoise.
It looks
It was born in Seychelles. It looks like ugly.
Yeah.
It is an ugly old tortoise.
I mean,
but this thing
look
lives.
at it.
This thing lives.
What the heck?
Yeah, it's turning 190 years old. And Jonathan, by the way, still currently holds the oldest record at 189.
Wow.
Jonathan, the tortoise, keeps beating his own record. So I thought his backstory was kind of interesting. He was originally from the Seychelles, which is in the Indian Ocean.
Look how big it is.
Before he was brought to St. Helena Island, part of the British Overseas Territory in the South Atlantic Ocean. And records say that when he arrived in St. Helena in 1882,
Look at it.
he was fully mature. So if he was fully mature in 1882, that means, according to experts, that a fully mature tortoise must be at least 50 years old.
Wow.
Which means that in 1882, if he was at least 50, they mark his birth minimally in 1832. Maybe he's even older than that.
Sheesh.
No one knows exactly when he was born.
Could you imagine to see that many years and see like how everything has changed? I wonder. I wish like we could talk to it. Wish it could just tell us how life was back then.
Like, there were no lights, there was no
Right,
cell phone,
like-
there was no car. When this tortoise was
Right.
born, there was no trains, there was no
crazy.
car, there
That's
was no
crazy.
records, there was no photographs.
None of that.
They would have candlelight and some guy on an easel
Wow.
painting pictures.
That's insane.
That's insane,
That's
right?
insane.
Well, despite his age, Jonathan is still very healthy and has a good hearing skills.
Wow.
He's older, Jonathan, than the Eiffel Tower.
Sheesh.
And the world's oldest tortoise still loves to stroll around the gardens together with 3 other giant tortoises named David, Fred. He looks like he has an old man face, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah, David, Fred, and Emma. So happy, Jonathan,
We share the same
and
birthday,
Jonathan the tortoise share the
Yes.
same birthday.
That tortoise is an Aries. I could feel it.
All right, so that's our fuzzy news for the
Nice.
day, Jonathan. Thanks for watching. For more Bradshaw Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.